Hello all. Welcome to PLSQL Fundamentals Part 2. Let's get started. So we will discuss about SQL statement in PLSQL. So what does a SQL select command do? It basically fetches the records from a database and displays to the user. So if we want to extract a particular row, we can use a select command. Okay. We can make changes to rows in the database by using DML commands. So DML are data manipulation languages or commands which we can use to make changes in a database. Then we have to control a transaction, we can use commit, rollback or save point. In order to determine DML outcome, we can use implicit cursors. So we will talk later about cursors, but for now, implicit cursors are automatically created by Oracle whenever an SQL statement is executed. Okay, so whenever an SQL statement is executed, implicit cursors are automatically created. So we will learn about this through an example. You can see select statement. So this is a select statement which is fetching record into a variable name from a particular table with where condition. So you can see a where condition is. Now if we take an example, so retrieving data in PLSQL, how do we retrieve data? So you can see we have defined a anonymous block which we discussed in the last session. So we have v order date which is of percentage type, v ship date which is again of percentage type. Now what we want to fetch the order date and ship date where ID is 620. So where ID is 620. So what we are doing, we are trying to get values from the table ORD where ID is 620 and we are fetching it into v order date and v ship date. So this select statement will get the values into this particular variable. Okay, so this is a simple example to retrieve data. Now suppose we want to return the sum of salaries for all employees in the specified department. So the department number is 10 and we are selecting the sum of, so sum is a group function. You may be knowing in SQL it's the sum function. So we are doing a sum of all the salaries for an employee table where department number is 10. Okay, and it will store in v sum salary. So this will store the value of all the salaries for a particular department. Clear? Now manipulating data using PLSQL. So we have, as I mentioned, data manipulation languages. So what we have, insert, update and delete. So for insert, like if we want to insert a particular data or a row in a table, then we use insert command. If we want to update any particular data in a table, we use update command. And if we want to delete any particular data, then we use a delete command. So these are three DML statements which we mainly use for inserting the data, for updating the data and deleting the data. Now updating the data. So suppose we want to increase a salary of all employees in that employee table who are analysts. Okay. So what we do update employee set salary. So salary is the new salary. Salary plus V salary increase. So what is the amount it is increased? So it is 2000. So whatever salary, suppose its salary is 10,000. So where job is analyst and it should be analyst. So this is the criteria, the condition. The job is should be analyst. So if in an employee table, if we have, suppose an employee having 10k salary, so its salary will be increased by 2000, so it will be 12k now. Okay, where job is analyst. So this is how we update the data. Now deleting the data. So how do we delete? It is simple statements, like if we want to delete that belong to department 10 from the employee table. So delete from employee where department number is 10. So simple statement. You can delete the statements. So update and delete. Okay, these are the naming conventions. So for insert, I think it is not given, but for insert also we have similar approach, like insert into the table name and whatever values we have, we can give, like insert into employee and give values as like we are moving employee name. So we can give employee name, age, okay, and give values. So this is how we insert the data. Now coming back to the slides, we have naming conventions. So what we do, so you can see there is an error, like exact fact returns more than requested number of rows. Why this error? First of all, we have given v order date, so we haven't followed the naming convention. So naming convention should be v underscore v order date, should be v underscore v ship date, and v underscore order id, because you can see the order date, it is the same reference from this particular table, so we cannot use the same, as I told you in my previous slides or previous sessions. Now the main problem with this is order ID is 601. So for this, for 601, there might be more than one record. So if we are using a simple statements like select order date, ship date into order date, ship date from order where order ID is 6601, then it might have more than one value. So the program will get error out and will send message like exact fact returns more than requested number of rows. So it will fetch more than requested number of rows. So therefore this error is there. Okay. So we should not do this. In over to overcome this, what we need cursors. So we will come later about cursors. So this is clear, right? Now commit and rollback statements. So earlier we discussed about DML statements, which were insert, update, delete. Now we were doing about transactional commands, which are commit and rollback. So these are, so initiate a transaction with the first DML command to follow commit or rollback. So commit and rollback is always applied after any particular SQL query. So suppose we are writing like insert into employee table and values. Now we have to write commit. If we don't write commit, it will appear for that particular session, but it might not appear for that complete, like it will not get complete. So we have to write a commit statement. We write commit, so that, like suppose if I am inserting any record, then it will be permanent, and if any other users try to check that particular database, he will also able to see that particular row which I have inserted. So basically for commit means that you are committing that particular query. If you are inserting, then commit. If you are updating, then commit. If you are deleting, then commit. And rollback stands for, like, if you don't want to commit, you just want some scenario to be tested, like insert and then you roll back, so it will not store in the database, it will not allocate any memory. Okay, so commit to save the changes, rollback to roll back the changes. Save point, what is save point? Now commit and rollback, you understand. Save point, it create a points within the group of transactions in which to roll back. So it is a particular point, it is a logical rollback point. Okay, usually when you execute the rollback command, it undergoes the changes until the last commit. But if you create save points, you can partially roll the transaction back to these points. You can create multiple save points between two commits. Okay, so this is the main use of save point. Now coming to set transaction. So set transaction is a command that can be used to initiate a database transaction. So if you want to initiate a database transaction, we can use a set transaction command. This command is used especially to specify characteristics from the transaction that follows. For example, you can specify a transaction to be read only or read write. So you can, a transaction should be read only or it should be read write. So these are the some transactional commands. Controlling PLSQL flow of execution. Now, you can change the logical flow of statements using conditional if statements and loop control structures. I am understanding that you might be aware of this conditional if statements. So we have if, then, and if, then, else, and if, then, else, if, and if. Okay, so these are some commands. We will come further to examples for them. So you can see the syntax: if condition then statements, else if condition then statements, else statements. So basically else if and else are optional. So we we can write or we can ignore them also. But if condition is mandatory. So it is a simple if condition: set the manager ID to 22 if the employee name is Osborne. So you can see if V employee name is Osborne, then V manager is equals to 22. And if so, if a particular like employee name is Osborne, then the V manager would be 22. Otherwise, it would not be 22. Simple if statements: set the job title to salesman, the department number to 35, and the commission to 20% of the current salary if the last name is Miller. So now we have a if statement, like if we have a name, he name Miller, job as salesman, department number as 35, then do a new commission as salary into 0.20. So whatever the salary of that employee, it will be multiplied by 0.20. But the condition should be met. Like if we employee name is Miller, sorry, if we employee name is Miller, so we have to set job as salesman, we have to set department as 35, we have to set as a new commission as salary into 20. Okay, so set the job title to salesman, department number to 35, and commission to 20% if the last name is Miller. Got it? If then else, so it is also the same. So if we ship date minus v order date, so suppose the ship date is 10th of October and the order date is 5 of October. If less than 5, so it is less than 5, it is equal to 5, so it is not. Okay, so we will do 4, so it is 6, so 6 should be greater than 5, then v ship flag is acceptable, so v ship flag should be acceptable. But if it should be 8, so 10 minus 8 is not less than 5, so it should go in else, so which is unacceptable. Okay, so this is the if then else statements. Now another example of if then and else if statements. So if we start is greater than 100, then it should be multiplied by 2. If it is greater than equal to 50, then it should be multiplied by 0.5. Otherwise, it should be for all other cases. Else is for all other cases. Whatever the criteria is not met, so it is for all other cases. It should be multiplied by zero point 0.1. Okay, so this is if then else if. Building logical conditions. Now you can handle null values with the is null operator. So there is one operator called is null. Okay, and to handle some values, if we want a particular variable to be null, so we can write is null. Or we want to check some conditions like uh, like of like the first name or the last name is null, then do that particular thing. So we can write if last name is null, so this is null, then do that particular thing. Okay, so it is an arithmetic expression containing a null value is null. Concurrent expressions with null values treat null values as an empty string. So if there are like null values, if we suppose v underscore salary is equals to this, means so it will be treated as null only. Okay, it will be treated as null only. Now these are the logical tables. So you understand boolean, we have true and false. So these are the conditions, like if there is and like a and p, if true true, then true true is true, true false is false, true null is null. Okay, false true is false, false false is false, false null is false. You can see the difference, it is not null, so false null is false. Okay, similarly for or, if true true true, true false true, true and false, like if one of the condition is met, it is again true. If true and null, then again it is true. So you can see true at every time. Whereas in the AND condition, all the false are, whatever the case, false should be always there. For not, not should be like if not. So true should be false, false should be true, and null should be null. So that will be opposite. Null for null, it will be always remains null. So these are the logical tables. Iterative control loop statements. So we have discussed about if else condition. Now we are looping. Now how, if there are suppose more than one record, then how to loop statements. I might understand that you have in C, we have the same structure. In C or C++, we have the same structure. We have the basic loop, for loop and while loop. So basic loop is like loop statement 1, exit when condition, and end loop. So condition is a boolean variable or expression. Okay, so it is a simple loop. It is a delimiter. It is statements. This is an exit statements, and again a delimiter. So loop and end loop are delimiters. This is a statement. This is an exit statement. Now this is an example where we are looping. So we have a v counter of 1. Loop insert into item. Okay, it is inserting. So as I discussed, like it is DML statement which is inserting into item, values this v counter. So now what is the counter? 1, already 1. So 1 plus 1 would be 2 now, and exit when counter is less than 10. So it will be, it will, it will exit, when the counter is less than 10. So suppose now it is for 2. Now again it will insert for 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and when it will get it to 11, so it will check that 11, the counter value is more than the assigned value, so it will exit. So it will insert up to 10 values. Okay, this is a for loop. So for loop, again similar to normal loop. So we have a condition like for counter in, lower bound to upper bound. Lower bound is 0. We can start with 0, we can start with 1, and up to how many places we have to go, 10, 20, loop, statement 1, statement 1, statement 2, and end loop. So use a for loop to shortcut the test for the number of iterations. Do not declare the index, it is declared implicitly. So we don't have to declare the index, it will automatically takes index implicitly. So here is an example where we are inserting the first 10 new lines for order number 601. So you can see for I in 1 up to 10. So it will insert up to 10 new lines. Insert into this. We don't need to use exit because it will work only for 10 times. Okay. So this is the major difference between basic and for loop. Now while loop. Again, while loop is like condition is evaluated at the beginning of each iteration. So while loop to repeat statements while condition is true. So this is the while condition loop, again end loop. These are the delimiters and then statements. Statement 1, statement 2. So let's understand with an example. Uh, okay, so it doesn't have an example, so it is similar to that particular for loop, but it will only perform when the conditions are met, and it will exit automatically whenever the conditions are not met. So this is the major difference between loop, for loop, and while loop. Now talking about nested loops. So nested loops are like one loop inside one loop. There are multiple loops. So like there we have a big PLSQL block where we have a for loop, and then again we have a for loop, and then again we have a for loop. So this is a nested loops. So you can see loop, sequence of statements, loop, sequence of statements, and end loop and end loop. Okay, so exit the outer loop with the exit statement reference the label. So we can write as exit here whenever the conditions are met, and then it will exit the first particular loop. So here is an example of the nested loops. So you can see this is the outer loop. Okay, this is the outer loop. V counter plus 1. So we are every time we are adding one row. Exit when counter is less than 10. So suppose it goes inside this. Now at the first time it is 0. 0 plus 1 is equals to 1. It will enter here. Exit when outer loop when total done is equals to yes. Leave both loops. Exit, it will leave both the loops. Exit when inner done is yes. Leave inner loop only. So there are conditions like if outer loop is when total done is equals to yes, then leave is exit, and when inner done is yes, then leave the inner loop. So it will run like 10 times because we have written exit when v counter. It will check and it will. So its main purpose is like the inner loop will exit first, then it will go back to outer loop, then outer loop will exit and it will return. Okay, so these are the nested loops. Now coming to a very important topic which is called cursors. So maybe we will plan cursors in the next session because it is a complex and we have to get everything understand for cursors. So I will pause for now and we will have a third session for PLSQL fundamentals. Okay, thank you.